what happens when you combine this with this and mix in just a little bit of this? Well, as it turns out, you get all of this. Hello there, fellow travelers. I'm Tim from Secret Fire Books, and this is Rob Rhymes' Barbarians of the Storm. So about a year ago, when I first started trying to find good old-fashioned sword and sorcery and pulp fantasy stories written by modern authors, I came across a guy named Rob Rhymes and his series Barbarians of the Storm, which is actually something pretty unique. Rob has talked about this on his Substack, Talking Pulp Press, multiple times, but he mentioned that his series was originally supposed to be a comic book. He had an idea to write a graphic novel, and it all originated from one night when he and his friends were hanging out and getting wasted and watching some old 80s action movies. And he thought to himself, what if I took these tropes from old science fiction movies and sword and sorcery movies, and then stuff from old Mad Max post-apocalyptic ripoffs, and I sort of mashed it together into one big story and one big crazy comic book. And he stuck with that idea for a while. He had a bunch of scripts written, and he even had an artist working with him who was down to finish the series. But at the last minute, the artist bailed out, and so Rob kind of shrugged his shoulders and was like, you know what, I'll do it myself. And so he turned those scripts into Book 1 of Barbarians of the Storm, Dan the Destructor. And you can tell that the series was originally meant to be a comic book because it's all written like the script for a comic book. It's written in third person, in present tense, and it takes kind of a while to get used to that weird formatting. But once you do, it reads really quickly and really well. Now, as far as the story is concerned, it starts off with a character named Dan. Dan is just a regular guy from our world. He's this sort of schlubby office worker. And one day while he's typing an email, this portal opens and sucks him into another world, or at least what he thinks is another world. And so he ends up in this wasteland surrounded by all these monsters, and he's quickly rescued from them by this mighty, barbaric hero on the front cover here, named Fenric. And Fenric is just your typical questing barbarian hero, and he and Dan become friends pretty quickly, and from that point on you have your two main characters, Dan and Fenric, and it sort of becomes this buddy adventure series from then on out, with all these elements of science fiction and post-apocalyptic and sword and sorcery thrown in. So the story in and of itself is not anything too original. Guy from our world ends up in fantasy world, has a bunch of crazy adventures. It's nothing too special, but it's the characters, their interactions with each other, the sort of tongue-in-cheek humor, and especially the setting that really makes this something interesting and worth reading. Like I said, Dan thinks that he's wound up in this, alternate fantasy world at first, but he eventually finds out that this might actually be our world. It might be Earth, thousands and thousands of years into the future, after it's been, just laid waste by nuclear war and nuclear fallout, with all these mutated creatures and these different weird civilizations rising up. There's various levels of technology in different parts of this world. In some worlds, in some places in the world, they only have, very primitive, up to a medieval level of technology. And in other places, they have airships and cars and firearms and whatnot. It's basically the kind of setting where you can throw anything into it and it will stick, because it's supposed to be over the top and crazy and kind of self-indulgent, I guess you could say. It's working off of the rule of cool quite a bit. If it's cool, it doesn't need to make sense. It can just be in the story, and you hand wave it away because it's cool. That's what the series is meant to be. It's not supposed to take itself too seriously. Rob Rhymes is not trying to be the next Tolkien. He's not trying to be the next Robert E. Howard. He's just trying to make something that's goofy and fun and entertaining, and I really respect it for that. I think the best way I can describe the series is, think of it this way. A bunch of kids get together with all their different action figures from all these different series. It doesn't matter what series they're from, doesn't matter what genre they're from, they just pile all their action figures together and they all play with them at the same time, and they come up with some big, crazy, genre-bending storyline. If you were a kid who had action figures when you were little, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's basically something like
Come with me, Many-Faces from He-Man. We must help the Justice League and the Ninja Turtles defend Gondor from the coming invasion of the Borg. Also, I'm a good guy now.
So yeah, that's what reading Barbarians of the Storm is kind of like. So presently there are 4 books in the main series, plus 2 short story collections and a spin-off novel. The ones I have are Book 1, Dan the Destructor, Book 2, Atomic Beasts and Where to Kill Them, the first short story collection, Eyes in All Shadows, Book 3, Swords Against Bastards, and Book 4, An Axe to Eat the Gods, which just came out at the end of January, if I remember correctly. So from what I've read so far, I've only read the first 2 novels, and I'm about halfway through Eyes in All Shadows. According to Rob's Substack, you should read Eyes in All Shadows before getting to Book 3, just so you have all the context for some of the characters and whatnot. But from what I've read so far, I've really enjoyed it. Like I said, it's just a bunch of mindless action and violence and raunchy humor just for the sake of it. It's really over the top. It's just kind of mindless fun, and I've been really enjoying it. I figure the best sales pitch I can give for the series is to read off this list I compiled of all these really cool but kind of quirky elements that I found in the series up to this point. So if I read the list off and you think to yourself, that sounds like something I'd want to read, you should probably read it. And if this doesn't sound cool to you, then you should probably skip the series. But let's see. Dragons. Time travel. Mutant animals. Magic powered by nuclear energy. Goblins. Someone being eaten alive by a frog. A friendly minotaur. A magic rock that gives you muscles. Barbarian women in bikini armor. Barbarian men in loincloths. A place called Flesh Hell. A talking koala who smokes cigars. Hunky demons with huge penises. Evil mutant paladins riding giant basilisk lizards. Evil mutant paladins riding giant basilisk lizards. Wire saw decapitation. An armored SUV with mounted machine guns called Big Bad Bitch. Eldritch gods. Sentient magic armor that communicates telepathically with its wearer. A character who is basically Evelyn from He-Man. Undead dragon pirate ship. I feel like I need to say that again. Undead dragon pirate ship. An insane evil jester. A fiery sentient demon sword. A villain called the Necro King. Giant gunships. A scene where a character gets impaled on a big spike, somehow survives, then pulls himself off of the big spike, and continues to fight the bad guys. And finally, copious usage of the F-word. So yeah, if that sounds appealing to you, I'm sure you'll enjoy Barbarians of the Storm. If not, go ahead and give it a pass. Either way, that's about all I have to say about the series. Before I finish the review, though, I do want to talk about the cover designs for these books. Now, the design for each cover isn't really anything special. I think Rob Rhymes just kind of uses a simple editing, digital art software to kind of compile all these covers together. But it's the colorization, the sort of color coding of these covers that really makes them stand out. And if you put them all together on your bookshelf, they look really nice together. And I think that says something about color coding your covers. I think independent publishers like myself can really learn something from this, because I mentioned in my previous book haul video that if an author publishes books and they're in a series and they're all a different color, I will buy that stuff up as soon as possible. I love collecting stuff. It's kind of a problem, I will admit, but if you make your books all different colors, that sort of, that collector brain, that gotta catch 'em all, Corvid-like part of my brain sees the pretty colors and it wants to collect them all. I think a lot of other book collectors and readers are that way. So yeah, if you're an independent publisher, take notes, color code your books, because gullible, easy to manipulate shoppers like me will see that your books are different colors. We'll see that they look nice all lined up on our shelves, and we will buy them. So yeah, that's basically all I have to say about the series. Go check it out. Go support Rob. Buy his books on Amazon. Check out his Substack, Talking Pulp Press. And if you're so inclined, go ahead and check my website, secretfirebooks.com. You can find all the links to all my books there if you're so inclined. It would be a big help to me, and I thank you for it. But until next time, guys, farewell, and keep reading.
Remind me what your powers are again. I find your wacky face disturbing.